The sky cracked open with thunder as the rain poured down in metallic sheets, washing the ash and dust from the skeletal remains of what had once been Meridian City. A place once filled with noise and light and laughter. Now only silence and ruin remained. The invasion had reduced it to a burned-out shell, the towers blackened, streets flooded with broken glass and rusted steel. The humans who hadn't died fled. Those who couldn't faded. She shouldn't have been alive. Not here. Yet there she was. Crouched beneath the collapsed skeleton of a train station canopy, soaked and shivering, her green eyes locked on the storm above like she could challenge the heavens to strike her down. Her hair hung in matted waves, stuck to her face and neck, plastered to her jacket. A makeshift blade lay beside her boot, crudely sharpened, barely a weapon. Riven should have walked away. He was Varith, first son of the Tarek bloodline, general of the Outer Legions, commander of the orbital purge fleet. He had wiped clean cities with a glance. He had cracked strongholds that had stood for centuries. His armor was etched in enemy blood and sacred script. His path was one of fire and legacy. And yet something in her presence, some unbearable pull, rooted him to the earth like he'd been struck by lightning. She didn't scream or cower or beg. She looked at him like she was done with everything, like she didn't care who he was or what he could do. And for the first time in his long, brutal life, Riven didn't know what to say. "You here to finish the job?" she asked, voice ragged, from smoke and silence. He stepped forward, boots cracking debris underfoot. His cloak whipped around him in the wind, the dark fabric lined with the markings of his rank. "I came for survivors," she snorted softly. "Well, congratulations, I'm it." He looked at her, really looked. Mud stained her jeans to the knees, and one arm was wrapped with a torn bandage, hastily made from what looked like a strip of curtain. Her hands were scraped raw, blood crusted under her fingernails. And still she stood with a kind of stubborn, furious dignity. She should have been afraid. Instead, she squared her shoulders, brushing wet hair from her eyes. "You gonna tag me? Ship me off to whatever off-world prison you guys toss humans into?" He tilted his head. "Do you want to be taken?" She blinked, clearly thrown. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." She stared at him, frowning like she couldn't decide if he was mocking her or if she was hallucinating. "No," she said eventually. "I don't want to be taken. I want to be left alone." Riven's jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here. The radiation levels are unstable. The rain is poisoned. Your body has already lived through hell," she cut in. "And I didn't ask for a health check, Commander." He blinked. She shouldn't have known his title. That wasn't part of their common tongue. Either she was smarter than she looked or someone had taught her things she shouldn't know. His hand hovered over his communicator, thumb twitching. And yet, she turned her face up toward the storm again. The rain ran down her cheeks in steady streams, her eyelashes fluttering, jaw clenched. There was a strange sort of grace to her, worn, weathered, but undeniably human. Varith Tech couldn't replicate that kind of spirit. Even their most advanced simulants lacked this. Riven stepped forward again. "What's your name?" I hesitated, then answered. "Isolde." The name rippled through him, ancient and unfamiliar. His hand extended slowly. He didn't know why. He shouldn't have done it. He had touched countless enemies, had killed more. But this was different. This wasn't a kill, it wasn't protocol, it was something older, deeper. She looked at his hand, her brow furrowed. Then, without ceremony, she took it. The world shattered. White-hot pain surged up his arm, racing through his body like a live wire had stabbed straight into his nervous system. His breath hitched. His vision tunneled. Symbols, old Varith glyphs, flashed, in his mind echoing with a soundless thunder. A call older than war, older than language. His knees nearly buckled. Isolde gasped and stumbled back, clutching her hand. "What the hell was that?" Riven stared at her. The pain in his chest pulsed in waves, sinking to his heartbeat. His right hand burned beneath the skin, He looked down, knowing already what he would see. The bond mark. A faint glowing sigil shimmered just beneath the surface, barely visible but seared into his DNA. This wasn't possible. You, he rasped. What are you? She bristled, backing away. Excuse me? This shouldn't happen, he muttered, more to himself than to her. You're human. It's not possible. What happened? Riven swallowed hard. You triggered a mate bond. Isolde stared, rain dripping from her chin. A what? It's a biological connection, a genetic signal. Sacred, controlled, tracked. It cannot form without perfect compatibility. Well, guess your system's broken, she snapped, folding her arms, because I'm not anyone's mate, especially not some glowing-eyed alien general. He should have turned away, should have left her. Instead, he ran. He didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The Emperor's voice haunted his thoughts. The archives. The law. No Varith elite had ever bonded with a non-Varith. It wasn't only taboo. It was heresy. There were no precedents, only punishments. He had read the old texts, the ones etched into bone and memory. If the Emperor discovered the bond mark, if he traced it to a human, Riven would be stripped of title, cast out, possibly executed, and Isolde? She'd be dissected before she ever knew why. He activated his console, entering encrypted mode. Data shimmered across the screen, genetic maps, compatibility charts, historical bond records, no match, nothing close. The system refused to acknowledge the validity of the imprint, and yet his hand still burned. His pulse still synced with hers. He could feel her, like a tether humming in the background of his consciousness. Her fear, her exhaustion, her defiance. The bond was real, and it was forbidden. 3 days passed before he saw her again. She had moved deeper into the ruins, where the rains didn't reach. She had made a fire, crude but steady, and caught something to eat. Some mutated rodent that looked vaguely edible. She was tougher than she looked, resourceful. He approached silently, but she heard him anyway. You again, she said, not looking up. I need answers. Get in line. She stirred her pot of vaguely orange stew, not offering him any. He sat anyway. You should have reported me, she said after a beat. Isn't that what you do with survivors? I considered it. What stopped you? He hesitated. I don't know. She finally looked up. Yes, you do. Their eyes locked. The tension between them was no longer subtle. It pulsed like a heartbeat. You said mate bond, she murmured. What does that actually mean? It means, Riven said carefully, that our lives are no longer separate, that our souls have recognized something ancient in each other. It is not a choice, it is fate. Isolde snorted. Sounds like a load of genetic fairy tale bull. Perhaps it is, but it's real. So, what? You're just stuck with me now? Yes. She stared at the fire. Great. He let the silence settle. Then she asked, what happens if we ignore it? He didn't answer. Riven, our bond will decay. Our minds will start to fray. You will feel it first. Headaches, memory slips, then confusion, pain. You'll lose sense of self. I'll lose my link to the line. She was very quiet. And if we complete it? His gaze darkened. Then we're joined forever in body, in mind, in soul. And your people? They'll kill us both. She stood then, abruptly. You shouldn't have come back. I couldn't stay away. A soft, bitter laugh. Figures. Isolde. She turned. The fire lit her face in gold and shadow. There was no fear. In her expression now, just something colder. Go home, Riven, she said, before you start a war. He didn't move, and the bond between them pulsed brighter. The next time Riven saw her, the air was thick with static, not from the weather but from orbit. Isolde didn't know it yet. She was crouched near the mouth of a crumbled subway tunnel, slicing open the side of a scavenged food pack with that same dull blade she'd carried since the beginning. She didn't notice how the air trembled with vibration, how the birds had vanished, how the sky was too quiet. But Riven felt it, deep in his bones. A high-priority dropship from the Central Command had entered Earth's atmosphere. They were being watched. He emerged from the shadows slowly, as he always did now, as if not to startle her. She didn't flinch this time, just gave him a sideways glance like she'd been expecting him all along. "You're late," she said. He raised a brow. "I wasn't aware we had appointments." She tossed the sealed pack toward him. "It's not poisoned. I wasn't worried." "Yes, you were." He smirked and lowered himself beside her, letting the silence settle between them. The tether that had formed when they touched hadn't faded. It had only grown stronger. He could feel the echo of her mood thrumming beneath his skin. Guarded, restless, tired. She hadn't slept well. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked suddenly, voice low. He didn't answer right away. Then softly, "Because every time I leave, it feels like something inside me is tearing apart." She was quiet for a long moment. "That's the bond thing again, huh?" "Yes." "Is it supposed to hurt?" "No, not like this." She looked at him. "Then what's wrong? With us?" He didn't have the words. Not yet. Because the truth was, their connection wasn't stabilizing. It was escalating. Faster than anything he'd ever studied in the Vayrith archives. Faster than any natural progression should allow. The bond wasn't just forming, it was flaring, violently, like a star about to go nova. Something about Isolde, something, in her human biology, was reacting to his Vayrith imprint in ways their scientists never imagined possible, or maybe had chosen to ignore. Riven reached toward her hand, not quite touching. "I shouldn't be here. But you are." "Yes." "Why?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I can't stay away from you, and that should terrify both of us." Her eyes searched his face. In that flickering tunnel light, she looked like something wild, untamed, sharp around the edges, carved by loss and fire. She didn't lean in. She didn't pull away. She just breathed, steady and strong, like she was learning to exist next to him. Then the world shook. The ground trembled beneath them with a low, rising hum, like the earth itself was preparing to scream. Dust sifted from the ceiling. A deep roar rolled overhead, distant at first, then piercing, unmistakable. "Ships," Isolde whispered. Riven was already on his feet, scanning the sky with narrowed eyes. A black dot blazed through the clouds, descending fast, too fast, no markings. Then he heard it, coded Vayrith communication pinging through his embedded implant. Not routine patrol, not supply, an inspection. His blood turned cold. "We have to move," he said. Isolde rose instantly, instinct kicking in. "What is it?" "Not good." She followed him as he sprinted through the cracked metro streets, weaving between shattered pylons and blackened walls. The sky darkened behind them. Thunder pealed again, but not natural this time. The deep mechanized thunder of landing thrusters. "Is it your people?" she called. "Yes." "Thought you said they didn't care about Earth anymore." "They don't," he growled, "unless they found something they shouldn't have." Her eyes widened. "The bond." He nodded grimly. "They've detected the flare." "How?" "We were careless. I stayed too long, felt too much." "You make it sound like it's my fault." "It isn't. But you're still in danger." They reached the edge of the collapsed sector, a sheer drop where the city's foundations had buckled in the early bombardments. Riven scanned the lower ruins, calculating escape routes. He could already feel the buzz of surveillance drones ahead, small, fast, and lethal. "We have to hide," he said. "No," she countered. "We run." He glanced at her, surprised by the fire in her voice. "I've been hunted before," Isolde said. "They don't expect speed, they expect fear. Let's surprise them." His lips curled into something close to a grin. They ran. Through the shattered remains of a parking structure, across crumbling bridges slick with moss and broken cables. They ducked through vents, leapt over smoking fissures. Riven led, but she never once slowed. She was human, but she moved like someone who had survived the impossible. They made it to a flooded tram tunnel before the first drone spotted them. It fired. The blast lit the shadows with red heat, throwing sparks and smoke as it missed their heads by inches. Riven turned, drew his weapon, and shot it out of the sky in one fluid motion. The debris clattered down the wall behind them, still sparking. "They'll know where we are now," he said. "Then we don't stop." They ran deeper into the tunnel until the light vanished completely and the wet air clung to their skin, like breath. Only when the world had turned to black around them did they finally stop, lungs heaving. "Where does this go?" she asked. He scanned the tunnel walls. "Old transit maps say this leads to the underground archives, pre-invasion data hubs. Can we hide there? We can disappear there." They pressed on. Hours passed. Maybe more. Time was strange underground. Eventually the tunnel opened into a massive chamber, an old government vault, lined with broken data pylons and collapsed holoscreens. The dust here was untouched. Whatever had lived here had died or left long ago. "This is where I go to die, huh?" Isolde murmured. He looked at her sharply. "Don't say that." She sat heavily on a chunk of metal, wiping sweat and grime from her forehead. "You think they'll find us?" Riven sat beside her. "I think they already know." "Then why run?" He hesitated. Then, "Because I don't want them to have you." Silence bloomed again. She leaned back, eyes tracing the ceiling. "You said the bond was sacred." "Yes, but not with me." "That's not what I meant." "Is it?" He turned toward her. "I didn't choose this, but now that it's happened, now that you happened, I would choose it again, even if it breaks everything I've built." She looked at him then. Really looked. "Why?" His throat tightened. "Because the moment I touched you, I stopped being alone." She said nothing for a long time. Then she reached out, hesitantly, and took his hand again. The bond ignited between them, not with pain this time, with warmth. He exhaled shakily. So did she. Their hands stayed joined. Their breath synced. "I hate how this feels," she whispered. "Like I'm being rewritten from the inside out." "You are. Then write me gently." He swallowed hard. "I will." Something deeper shifted between them, and that was when the vault doors exploded. A wall of heat and sound knocked them off their feet. Metal shrieked. Debris flew. Through the smoke stepped a figure robed in red and gold, his presence like a gravity well, pulling everything into silence. Isolde froze. Riven went cold. "Emperor Vakir," he breathed. The Emperor's eyes, black. As the void, rimmed with violet flame, landed on Riven first. "My son." Riven bowed instinctively, though his body screamed against it. Then the Emperor's gaze slid to Isolde, and everything stopped. "A human," Vakir said, voice soft and cold. "I expected better from you, Riven." "She's—" Riven started. "I know what she is," the Emperor interrupted. "The bond mark pulses like a beacon across systems. Do you think I wouldn't notice?" Isolde stood, slowly, her shoulders squared. She looked at the Emperor of a star-spanning race like he was just another arrogant man with too much power. "Don't talk about me like I'm a mistake," she said. The chamber seemed to inhale. Vakir stepped forward. "You are not a mistake. You are a weapon I will unmake." "No," Riven said, stepping between them. "You won't touch her." The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Do you stand against your own bloodline?" "I stand for the bond." Silence. Again. Then, "So be it." With a flick of his wrist, guards poured in behind him. Tall, armored, armed with pulse blades. Riven drew his weapon. Isolde grabbed a fallen pipe. Stay behind me, he said. I can fight. She snapped. No, and then all hell broke loose. Fire and light filled the chamber. Pulse blades sliced the air in brutal arcs, lighting the vault with bursts of white and violet. Riven moved like a storm, spinning, striking, blocking, every motion precise and lethal. He disarmed the first, soldier in a blink, slammed him into the wall and pivoted toward the next without hesitation. Isolde didn't wait for instructions. She fought like someone with nothing left to lose. Her makeshift weapon cracked against an armored jaw, a sharp twist sending her attacker reeling. Another came up behind her. Riven caught him by the neck and hurled him backward, his eyes never leaving her. You said I could fight, she said, breathlessly. I didn't say I could watch you bleed. He grabbed her hand. Run. Together, they darted into the ruins of the archive's lower levels, through crushed corridors and down spiral staircases choked with roots and debris. The air smelled of heat and metal. Behind them, the Emperor's voice echoed like thunder. You cannot run from fate, Riven. You cannot hide what burns. But Riven had already made his choice. He would burn the stars down before he let them take her. They broke into a narrow crawl space barely tall enough to stand. The air here was colder, older. Ancient Earth technology blinked dimly beneath the dust, forgotten machines humming faintly as they passed. It felt like entering a tomb, or a sanctuary. They stopped only when the silence felt deeper than breath. Riven collapsed to one knee, panting. Isolde crouched beside him. You're hurt. No, he said, but the tremble in his voice betrayed him. She reached out, pulled aside the scorched fabric on his shoulder. Blood, not red but silver blue, seeped from a cut below his collarbone. The wound shimmered faintly in the dark. He winced when she touched it. I thought you were supposed to be made of steel, she whispered. Only in the stories. She ripped a piece of fabric from her jacket and pressed it to the wound. He flinched. She held firm. You saved my life, she said quietly. Not yet. She looked up. You didn't hesitate. You stepped between me and your father. I didn't think, he murmured. I just knew that if he touched you, I would break. Her hands stilled. Their eyes met in the dark. Something passed between them, thicker than tension, sharper than fear. The connection pulsed, stronger than before, a heat that radiated from somewhere beneath their skin. She was too close. Or not close enough. I don't want this bond to be a cage, she said softly. It isn't, he whispered. It's a fire, she shook her head, and fires burn things. Only the things that need to be remade. His fingers brushed her cheek just once, and it felt like touching lightning. Isolde inhaled sharply. She wanted to move away but couldn't. She wanted to lean in but didn't. Her heart thundered, her blood ran wild. This wasn't how things were supposed to happen, but the universe had never asked for her permission. I've lost everyone I ever cared about, she said. I won't survive it again. Then don't lose me, Riven said. Stay. She swallowed. You're a prince of an empire that's colonized half the galaxy. I was. I'm nothing now. Just a man standing in front of the one person who makes the silence bearable. She hesitated, trembling. Then, you're a fool. Only for you. They didn't kiss. But gods, they wanted to. By the time they emerged from the underground, the sky was darker than before, ash-gray clouds swirling over a jagged horizon. Smoke still rose from the distant vaults. Patrol ships crisscrossed the sky like vultures. We have to disappear, Riven said. And go where? Earth's a battlefield. There's a place, he said. The null zones. No drones. No satellites. Too unstable. Too unstable, she asked, brow raised. Even the Empire avoids them, she smirked faintly. Sounds perfect. They moved through the ruins like shadows, every footstep carefully placed, every breath measured. Riven disguised his energy signature with an ancient earth cloaking band, one Isolde had scavenged months ago and never figured out how to activate. Do you trust me now? She asked, glancing at it. I trusted you from the moment you threatened me with a stick. Technically, it was a shovel. He smiled, just a little. They made their way north, avoiding the fractured highways and hovering patrols. Days blurred, together in a haze of movement, exhaustion, and stolen moments. In the quiet, they learned each other. She learned that Riven had once been meant to rule not just a sector, but a galaxy. That he had studied diplomacy, warfare, art, and philosophy. That he'd been raised in palaces carved from moons, but had always felt like a ghost in his own world. He learned that Isolde had survived the occupation by becoming invisible. That she'd buried a brother. That she still remembered the taste of her mother's bread even though she hadn't seen her since the first bombardment. That she didn't cry when she was hurt, but when she saw beauty in places no one else did. He watched her sketch stars in the dirt. She listened when he spoke Vayrith in his sleep. They didn't talk about what was happening between them, but it was there, in every shared fire, every unspoken glance, every time she bandaged a wound, or he pulled her close when the wind turned too cold. The bond simmered slow and wild. But it wasn't until the storm that it broke open. The null zones were worse than Riven remembered. Storms rolled endlessly across black skies, heavy with electric clouds, gravity bent in strange places. The air itself shimmered with radiation, though not enough to kill, just enough to change things. They took shelter in an old temple, one of Earth's oldest ruins, half swallowed by time and vines. The roof had caved in, but the central altar stood tall, stone etched with human markings and something else, something alien older than the Vayrith themselves. Riven stood in the rain, letting the storm lash against his skin. Isolde watched from inside. You'll catch something. He turned, rain, sliding down his face. I already did. She sighed, walked out into the storm and grabbed his arm. You're impossible. I needed to feel something real. She looked at him. The water ran down her cheeks like tears, though her eyes were fierce. I'm real. I know. He stepped closer. Her hand was still on his arm. I don't want to lose you, he said. You don't have me. Then take me. The words fell like thunder between them. She stared up at him, heart pounding. Are you asking me to bond fully? I'm asking you not to run from what's already burning. He cupped her cheek with trembling fingers. I'll never force it. But if you say yes, there's no turning back. She leaned into his touch, eyes fluttering closed. The storm howled around them, but inside her it was quiet. I say yes, she whispered. And then they were crashing together. The kiss was fire, wild, consuming, unstoppable. His arms wrapped around her like armor, her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him down as if anchoring herself to the only thing keeping her sane. The bond ignited fully, pouring through both of them in a wave of heat and light. The storm exploded overhead. Rain turned to steam. Their souls collided. He lifted her, gently, reverently, and carried her into the temple. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Every touch spoke volumes. Every breath was a vow. In the shadows of that forgotten place, among relics of a world long dead, they made something new. When morning came, the skies were calm. They lay tangled in each other, breath slow, skin still glowing faintly from the bond. He traced her spine with lazy fingers. You're not what I expected. She smiled against his chest. Good. You're more. They stayed like that for a long time. But peace never lasts. Not when the stars are burning. Not when an emperor has declared war. Not when the empire has marked her as forbidden and claimed her survival a rebellion. Riven sat up, senses flaring. Something had changed. He reached for his comm band, tapped into a frequency he hadn't used in years. Static, then a voice. Emperor Vakir declares planetary lockdown. Bondmate extraction priority. All assets authorized. Find the girl. Bring her back. Isolde stirred. What is it? They're coming. For me? For us? She didn't flinch. Then let them come. The air trembled long before the ships appeared. A low, pulsing hum rolled across the sky, deep and vast. Like the heartbeat of something ancient waking from sleep, Isolde stood at the mouth of the temple, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the clouds split, revealing the unmistakable glint of the Empire's dread fleet. They were here. Hundreds of vessels, their undersides glowing with the searing light of plasma engines, dropped from the sky like blades. The Emperor had sent everything, not to conquer, not to bargain, but to reclaim, to take her. Behind her, Riven moved silently. He was already in his combat gear, sleek black armor fitted to his form like it had grown from his bones. Sigils across, the chest glowed in pulses synced to his heartbeat. The twin hilts of his energy scythes rested on his back. "You don't have to fight," he said. She turned slowly, her face calm. "Neither do you. But here we are." His gaze was steady. "They'll try to take you alive. Then they're going to be very disappointed." He stepped closer, slipping a bracer onto her wrist. "This will shield you from direct energy strikes. Don't let it lull you into recklessness." She arched a brow. "You just described yourself." Riven smiled. Tight, fierce, and just a little wild. The bond between them pulsed like a second heartbeat, alive and electric. Since the moment they'd sealed it, Isolde felt his presence even when he wasn't touching her. She could feel his anger when the ships appeared, his fear buried under layers of training, and beneath it all, his love. She reached for his hand. "If this is how it ends," she said, voice low, "I want it to be with you." "It won't end," he replied. "It will change, and the galaxy will have to change with us." A light laugh escaped her lips. "You always talk like a man with a throne in his blood." "I never wanted the throne," he said. "I wanted freedom. I just never knew what it looked like until I found you." The temple's stones shook under the roar of descending ships. Earth cracked beneath their boots. The enemy had arrived, and Riven stepped into the storm like a god returning to war. They came in waves. Drop units smashed into the jungle surrounding the null zone, vomiting armored soldiers armed with fusion, rifles and toxin drones. Each one bore the sigil of Emperor Vakir, Riven's father, and all of them had the same mission: retrieve the human, eliminate the traitor prince. They were met with fire. Isolde, with her stolen weapons and guerrilla instincts, moved through the trees like a phantom. Every fallen drone became parts for a trap. Every bolt of plasma was answered with a blade. And Riven? He didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like something divine. His scythes moved in sweeping arcs of energy, cleaving through steel and bone with graceful brutality. He was faster than they could track, more ruthless than they expected. He wasn't defending her. He was avenging her. One of the commanders, an 8-limbed brute with carbon plating and a voice like gravel, lunged toward Isolde with a blade drawn. Riven intercepted mid-leap, slamming his scythe through the commander's chest in a single fluid motion. "You will not touch her," he growled, voice low and full of rage. By the end of the first hour, the jungle was a graveyard. But the ships kept coming. High above, in the orbiting flagship, Emperor Vakir stood. At the observation deck, robes flowing, eyes alight with fury. "My son defies me," he said. "For a human." "She is not just human," replied the High Seer. "She is bonded, soul-marked. She is prophecy." Vakir's nostrils flared. "I am prophecy. She is the end of yours," the Seer whispered. The Emperor turned to his captain. "Deploy the Eradicators. Burn the entire zone. I will claim her ashes if I must." On the ground, lightning split the sky. Riven and Isolde fought back to back, encircled by fire and smoke. Their movements had synced without words, a dance of survival and fury. Every time she stumbled, his hand was there. Every time he took a hit, she stood guard. And then the sky tore open. The Eradicators fell, not soldiers, but machines, towering, Constructs, each as tall as a building, shaped like insects and beasts and nightmares. They didn't just fire, they consumed, disintegrating trees and stone alike with beams of unfiltered void light. "Run!" Riven shouted, shoving her toward the cliff's edge. "No!" she shouted back. "We fight together! You can't fight them! I won't leave you!" But the first Eradicator charged. They dove just in time, tumbling down the cliff, as the place where they'd stood exploded into dust and flame. Isolde gasped as she landed hard, pain lancing through her shoulder. She looked up, expecting to see the machine above, but instead she saw Riven. He had shielded her. Again. "You always do this," she said through clenched teeth. "You protect me like I'm made of glass." "No," he murmured. "I protect you because you're everything I don't want to lose." They were surrounded. The Eradicators adjusted position, massive limbs clicking, plasma cannons warmed to fire. And then, nothing, because the world erupted in light. From the temple behind them, the altar began to pulse, louder, brighter, ancient. Circuitry came alive, flooding the jungle with golden arcs. Symbols they hadn't seen before illuminated the stones. Earth tech, Varith code, and something older still. A voice filled the air, female, deep, and resonant. "Blood and bond have awakened the gate. Two as one. Flame and soul. The key is turned." Isolde clutched her head. "What is this?" Riven stared, awestruck. "The temple of the joining. I thought it was myth." The light swirled into a vortex, pulling the energy from the Eradicators. The machines convulsed, shrieked, and then imploded, reduced to dust and sparks. Silence fell. The sky cleared, and in the center of the ancient temple, a doorway opened, stars shimmering beyond. Isolde stumbled forward, hand in Riven's. "HFY. This, a gate," he whispered, "to the true heart of the Empire, the origin." "Why is it opening now?" "Because we're not just bonded," he said. "We've changed the code, human and Varith. It sees us. It knows us." Above, the Emperor's ship descended, lower, louder, looming. Riven looked at the gate, then at her. "I won't force you," he said. She gripped his hand tighter. "I chose you, Riven. I'll keep choosing you." Behind them, the world burned. Before them, the stars waited. They stepped through the gate together. The gate closed. The temple fell silent once more. In the void between systems, they reemerged, floating in a chamber of pure light, suspended in a place untouched by time. And they were different. Isolde's skin shimmered faintly now. Not like his, but something new. A fusion. Her eyes held both earth and starfire. She felt it in her bones, the power of connection, of soul bonding, fully awakened. Riven pulled her close. "We've become something else." She smiled softly. "Maybe now, we build something else." Far behind them, the Empire panicked. The Emperor raged. And across the stars, worlds whispered the same story. The forbidden bond had survived. The galaxy would never be the same. The war did not end with fire, but with a heartbeat. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly. Reports from outposts whispered of a strange light rising from the null zone, a bond that defied biology, a human and a prince, walking through a gate that had never opened in 10,000 years. The Empire tried to silence it, but the story moved, faster than fear. Worlds that had never spoken out began to rise. Civilizations long subjugated by the iron rule of Emperor Vakir sent emissaries to the stars, demanding answers. The old throne trembled not from armies, but from a single truth: the future had chosen them. A year passed. In a place between systems, on a planet that didn't exist on any star map, a new city rose. Carved from stone and silver, fueled by the merged science of Earth and Varith, it pulsed with a strange kind of energy, one born not of domination, but unity. At its heart stood a sanctuary, not a palace, not a command center, a home, Isolde, stepped onto the balcony wrapped in a dark starlace shawl, the wind brushing her hair back. She looked up at the night sky, not Earth's, not Riven's, but something entirely new. Twin moons hung heavy above a field of stars, and in their light she had never felt more alive. Behind her, Riven emerged from the shadows, arms wrapped around her waist. No armor, no blades, just him. "Free. What are you thinking about?" he murmured into her shoulder. She leaned back into him. "Earth. My old apartment. Coffee I never finished. Bills I never paid." He chuckled. "And now you're a myth whispered by children in 100 languages." She turned, touching his jaw. "I never wanted power." "And yet," he said, brushing his lips against hers, "you lit a galaxy on fire." They stood together in silence, watching the stars shift. Then she said, "Do you think they'll come for us again?" "They already tried. They failed." "And your father?" "He's lost control. The throne's empty now." "Then maybe it's time to fill it," she whispered. He blinked. "You want to rule?" She shook her head. "No, I want to change it. I want to make sure no one else is ever hunted for loving the wrong person. I want to be the last forbidden mate." Riven studied her. Then he knelt. Not with ceremony. Not with a crown. Just one knee to the ground and a heart in his hands. Then, "Let me rule with you, not above, not below, as one." She smiled, eyes brimming with tears. "No more running, no more hiding," he said. She took his hand and pulled him to his feet. "Then let's show the stars what it means to love without fear." Years would pass. The galaxy would shift. Some empires would fall. Others would rise. But through it, all stories would be told of a human girl who fell in love with a forbidden prince, who faced down an empire not with armies, but with a soul that refused to bow. And somewhere, in the heart of that galaxy, they would still be standing. Side by side, not rulers, not rebels, just two souls bound across worlds, and the stars would burn for them forever.